afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's CloudSuite Industrial version 10 demo. Presenting today are DRI senior consultants and CloudSuite experts, Dave Lindeman and Mike Stitt. Dave and Mike have a combined 50+ years of experience working with ERP. Dave, I know we have quite a bit to cover in an hour, so I'll let you take it away.
Great, thank you, Emily, and thank you all for attending today. We certainly appreciate your time. What we're going to do today is we're going to cover some of the key attributes of CloudSuite 10. And before we jump into the actual system, I was just going to kind of acquaint you with the kind of the footprint of CloudSuite and talk about the depth and breadth of the product. So this is what we call our kind of circle of life for the CloudSuite product. And as you look at the top of this screen, you'll see that we cover all your PDM design and engineering functions, all your engineering with your routings, your bills of materials, all the related PDM and item information. As we kind of work our way around, we also have fully integrated project lifecycle management. So for those projects, not just in terms of your product, but also maybe capital projects, adding a production line or adding a facility that you may want to manage that project and track the details of estimates and budgets and estimates that complete, things of that sort. Working our way around customer relationship management and sales. Obviously, you'd think an ERP system would have sales, but a lot of ERP systems don't include CRM as an embedded component. In CloudSuite, that's just another application. It's fully integrated, and as we'll see, it's integrated with your Microsoft Outlook functions as well. Working our way down to about 3 o'clock, we see material and capacity planning, materials management, sourcing and procurement, all your planning and scheduling functions in terms of both purchased and manufactured items are included here. We're going to see examples of how you do real-time order promising using our planning, as well as some fairly sophisticated production planning and scheduling capabilities. Product configurator. So for those customers that have configured product that require kind of a selection or a prompted type entry of options as this customer's order products, the product configurator can build your routings and bills of materials on the fly and price the product accordingly, as well as provide visuals and other key things that you might want to do with product configuration. Working our way up from there, we see we've got integrated quality management. That's both inbound and in-process quality, as well as enterprise quality management to manage processes within the organization. Service and lifecycle management includes features for managing warranties, all service and field service activities, tracking the configuration of units in the field and any activity that takes place on those units. So the full service and warranty management function. And as part of that, maintenance management is included as part of that. So you can not only maintain those units in the field, but also maintain your internal assets, which again integrates with our fixed asset system. That's part of our financial compliance application. So the breadth and the depth of these applications are second to none when it comes to ERP footprint. Up at the upper left-hand side, I should say, integrated document management. We'll see some examples of that as we go through. So again, in a lot of systems, that would be a third-party product. In Infor CloudSuite, it's just another integrated part of the solution. And then also up here, human capital management. If you have payroll and HR requirements, again, included as part of the solution. And we also interface with products such as ADP and Paychex and other payroll providers. So a pretty broad footprint, but as you'll see, it's a very deep package as well. So that just kind of acquaints you with the footprint of the product. Now let's take a look at the actual product itself. The page I'm on now is what we call a user-defined homepage. It could be a role-based or user-based homepage. And each of these boxes are widgets. We call these widgets, and you can tailor these pages to your liking for your individual role within the organization. So as I kind of look across here, I've got some menu widgets at the top. I've got a metric widget down here showing me my CRM pipeline. This graphic that keeps flashing is an announcements widget. So you can kind of design it so that it's promoting something within your organization to your employees or broadcasting it to your employees. So whether it's a company meeting or just a general welcome or maybe some benefits information you want to display. And then on the right-hand side here, we see some customer interaction. This is more of a drill back type widget where I'm going to drill back into customer interactions I've had. As I work my way down, here's another widget. This is a dashboard. We're going to talk a little bit about burst analytics as we go through this, and that's part of our analytics solution as the part of the CloudSuite offering. Here's a example of an external widget. So the widgets don't have to be just internal applications. They can be external applications as well. All right, we'll take it a level deeper and we'll start talking about some of the navigation, how we get around in here. But let's see how simple it is for a user to change one of these home pages. So for example, I've got other home pages out here. I can have multiples. Here's one I call Dave's home page. A little different look. Maybe I've got an executive home page that has, in this case, this is a banner widget. At the bottom, I see some metrics. So as an executive, maybe I want to get a pulse of the organization and where I'm at. Okay, but let's go to Dave's homepage, and I want to add an item lookup capability here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Edit, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to search in my I'm going to search in my widget catalog by clicking on Add Widget. Now I'm going to hit my little search button, and I want to add item lookup. So I'm going to type the word item. And we see that I've got a few different options here. There's nearly 100 widgets out there I can select from. I'm going to go ahead and add the item lookup widget, come back in, and we'll see that that's placed it down here on the bottom. I'm going to reposition that. I want it up here in the primary panel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shrink my item availability down. Now I may want to move this, so I'm going to move it over to the left. And now I've got it positioned the way I want it. I'm going to save that home page. And so think of it as kind of like your cell phone. You're kind of moving the widgets or the little applications around the way you want them. Once I've got that, now I can do my, this is a live item lookup. If I type the word fastener as an example, hit enter. Okay, so that's bringing up all my fasteners, everything with the word fastener. Now I can drill back in from here. In the interest of time, we'll keep moving. All right, so that's how simple it is for a user to maintain that information. Now that doesn't have to be obviously IT intervention to do that. We'll take it a level deeper down into an application itself. I'm going to go into the item master, okay, just show you some navigational capabilities. So this is what we call one of our multi-view forms. I can use any combination of fields to filter data on this. So I'm going to filter on a family code I set up of DRI, and you'll see it brought up a collection of records over here on the left. Now I could work with that collection of records in a grid mode if I hit that little arrow. So there we see our grid, or I could work with it in the form itself. But you'll notice as I choose different products here, okay, it's changing the information on the right. So I'm choosing from my collection, and it's showing me the information on the right related to that, or I can work with that in the grid. So for example, if I want to change this ABC code here to a B, I move out of that field, you'll see now that little gold diamond indicates that I've made a change on that record. When I hit save, it'll save that. Or if I wanted to maintain records in more of a mass type mode, let's say I wanted to change all my ABC codes that are B to A. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to that column. I'm going to go up to Edit, and I'm going to click on Replace Values in Collection. And in this case, I want to change everything that was a B to an A. Click on Replace All, and you'll see that now everything that was B before became A. And these are the records that had changed. Now, let's say I didn't want to change this third record, this bracket. I hit that record. I click on my refresh, and you'll see that that goes back to a B. So I've got that same I've got that undo function throughout the system. So even though I'm in the item master, this applies across the board. You know, if I was updating a sales rep across a region or sales reps across a region, I could do that en masse using this grid type functionality. All right, now what I can do as well is when I'm on a form and I want to see additional information related to one of these records. Okay, so I'm just gonna refresh back to where we started. And I'm gonna say, I want to see information related to this wiper motor. Maybe I want to see stock locations. So I'm going to click on this little stock locations button, and you can add buttons and you can add access to different applications. But what happens here is it opens up a linked form. So I'm seeing all my locations that that's stored in right now. Well, if I go over and I choose another item from my collection, this charging unit, what you're going to see is because this is a linked form, that information has changed as well. So I can see my stockroom locations for the item that I'm focused on in the grid. So if you think about what we've done here, we've pulled up a collection of records that we want to work with, and I can work with them all in this same panel without having to go to another screen and key information in and come back and key it in again. It's very simple to work with that information. Now, one other feature I'll mention while I'm here is I can export information to Excel just by clicking the export button up here, but I can also import. So look, if I go down and I say, okay, I want to add records to this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go grab my Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to grab the records I want to import. I'm going to copy them. I'm going to come back and I'm going to type edit, paste, rows, append. Okay, now I'm going to paste that into this little window, click OK. Now what's happening is it's editing those rows entered just as if I had entered them online. And if I had any errors, I would see a little red exclamation point over here. In this case, I see blue stars. So if I were to hit save at this point, it would save those records, right? But maybe I want to add all but this record, this material 1, 2, 3. I'll just hit the delete on that row. And now I'm going to add everything but that record. So very easy to kind of manipulate the information and work with the information in the grid, as well as work with it in the form side of the multi-view forms. All right, so that's a little bit about navigation. We're going to jump into application areas in a little bit, but want to kind of acquaint you with how you get around in CloudSuite. Now, let's say, for instance, I wanted to change the look and feel of one of these forms. So I'm going to take you into a simple vendors form. And in this vendors form, I'm going to change the terms code to maybe read vendor terms. And you notice some of these fields are required, bank codes required. Well, I want to make terms required as well. And maybe I want to add some information to the screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit my design button. This is going to take me to a mode either by user, by group, or by site. That means for me, for a group of users, or for everybody in the organization. I'm going to keep it at the user level and click OK. This is the same tool that Infor used to build these applications. So you get that as part of your subscription, the capability of not only building new applications, but tailoring the applications that are already there. So let's go down and look at that field that we're talking about. I'm going to go to my terms code, and we're going to change the caption on that to vendor terms. Okay, so I've changed that. Okay, I also want to make that field a required field. So I'm going to go over to my data source, and you'll notice it says required false right now. I'm going to change that to true. Okay, so now that makes that a required field. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a calendar to this form. I'm just going to throw a calendar over here or add a button or something. Let's just go ahead and we'll add this calendar. All right, so I've made some changes to this form. Now, if I were to save this at this point, it would save that. I'm not going to. I'm going to hit my little paintbrush button, and even though I haven't saved it, I can see what the form is going to look like and how I can work with that. So you can see now, okay, and because I didn't save it, I didn't get my vendor terms required in there, but if I had, we would. But you're seeing the calendar, you're seeing the change in the terms field, and that's how simple it is to kind of tailor these screens. So I can take fields off, I can add fields, we can do, whatever we want to kind of make that look and feel like my organization. All right, so if I exit out of here, it's gonna say, do you want to save this? I'm gonna say no, and we go right back to our base form again. All right, talk a little bit about user productivity and analysis now. First thing I want to talk about is something called context-sensitive document management. And this is throughout the system. We have a fully integrated document management system. I'm going to take you into the item master. And when I'm focused on this wiper motor, if I hit this little caret in the upper right-hand side of the screen, I'm going to see a panel pop up here on the right-hand side. That's showing me any documents associated with the item I'm focused on. So I've got an inspection checklist. I got a drawing. I've got a picture. Well, watch what happens if I go down to another product. I'll go to the charging unit. So again, here's a picture, and here's a document, maybe a drawing associated with that. I can pop that drawing up if I want to see the drawing. I can also exit out to document management. Okay, and now I'm in my document management system, and I can see things like, check in, check out, all the revision history. So in this case, I only have 2 revisions, but I can revert back to a previous version if I want to. But I've got full access back to my document management system. And that's called context-sensitive information, and that allows me to easily get to any related documents. All right, talk a little bit about what we call user collaboration. It's called Mingle Collaboration in this case. And what this is allowing you to do is kind of meld your messaging with your business data. So in this case, I've got what we call an activity feed listed here in the center of the screen. And I can communicate with other employees. And when I do that, I might, in this case, this message you see right here, I sent when I was sitting in the item master. So I'll show you in a second how I did that. But I sent this to Jeff Smith, and I said product information had changed for a specific item. In this case, it happens to be this flex cable. All right, so I've got some attachments. But what the system does is it embeds a link in that document or in that message. And when I click on that link, it takes Jeff right to the individual item record and shows him that information. And again, Jeff can start using some of those other features, maybe the document management, to review details on that product. Once he's happy or satisfied with the changes that are made, he can come back and respond back to me to tell me that in this case, look good, go ahead and order as soon as possible. Now, again, when I did this, I was in the item master, I was on that product, and you just hit this little share button up here in the upper right-hand side. So when I hit share, okay, it embeds that link. I send it off to Jeff just by typing @Jeff. Okay, choose Jeff, put my message in, and share it. All right, so I like to say it's kind of like an electronic sticky note. I want to point someone to some information in the system and have them potentially review and respond. All right, another feature in CloudSuite throughout the applications is workflow management. And workflow management is going to allow me to trigger events to happen based on data elements in the system. Now, the example I'm going to give you is going to come from kind of the customer master. So I'm going to have an approval process initiated. There's nearly 100 predefined workflows out there for things like credit limits and purchase order approvals and engineering change approvals. This example is kind of a 2-tiered process of approving a customer and adding information for that customer. So let's say, for example, I've got a customer that is located on the same street as Jensen in the interest of time. So I'm just going to call it Johnson Manufacturing. And we'll say instead of 2910 Cole Street, this customer was at 2100 Cole Court. All right, so I'm going to hit save. Because I've got workflow turned on, what's going to happen is, actually, I'm sorry, I didn't duplicate them. I changed them. Let's do this. All right, we're going to change this to Johnson Manufacturing, sorry. And we'll just change the address to 10 Main Street. Okay, I'm going to save that record. And again, because I've got workflow turned on, I'm going to go to my inbox now. So instead of sending this, I can send this to Outlook, which I believe I did as well. You'll see that Johnson Manufacturing requires input and approval. I've sent it to my internal CloudSuite mailbox. I'm going to click respond. And what this is doing is it's prompting me for some information on that customer. So in this case, you know, if you're setting up customers, maybe sales and there's certain information, accounting enters certain information. So what I did is I approved that. Okay, so now I'm going to refresh this, and what we'll see is now it requires accounting approval. Okay, so I'm going to click accounting approval, and we're going to respond to that. And you'll see it's some different information now, terms, credit limit. Okay, accounting approves it, and now that becomes a valid customer. So that was kind of a multi-step workflow process. Now, prior to that customer being approved, it sat in kind of a suspense stage so that it couldn't necessarily be used for anything, but it may be visible, but it's suspended in the system until the final approval took place. So that's an example of how workflow management can make processes electronic that may be very manual today. All right. Talk a little bit about, we mentioned burst analytics, and I can embed a dashboard if I want in my home page, but I can also have it run independently in a browser, as we see here. And this can be CloudSuite or potentially non-CloudSuite information, or a combination of the two. But a burst dashboard is basically a series of, in this case, key performance indicators. So this is a profitability analysis. So I'm looking at sales, cost of sales, average profit margin, sales by customer, product line, et cetera. Now I can start drilling around this and say, okay, I want to see my sales in the West. So I'm going to drill into that. Now I see the numbers change up here in the graphics, depending on, you know, my threshold levels. Maybe in California, I want to see who my sales reps were and what their performance was. So I'm kind of drilling through that. Well, let's look at a real life example. So I'm looking at I refresh this. I'm seeing, okay, average margin by product line. Okay, so my Max 700 product line is running a little low. I click on that, and I see these are the two products that I sold. And if I click on the product that's experiencing the low product line, I see that, you know, sales to Burrow Tool were running pretty slim in terms of margin. And when I look at my details down here below, okay, I can see, oh, this order 2849 was only a 13% margin. Well, why is that? I'm going to click on that order, and that'll actually drill back into my CloudSuite application to show me that, oh, that was because the sales manager approved a low margin to retain the customer. So we can see how we started at kind of a high level, and then we drilled back to get additional information from there. All right, that's an example of burst. We'll see some other examples as we go through the demonstration of how you can use that for things like CRM and quality and vendor analysis and other areas. All right, the final thing in the overview section I wanted to touch on was something called responsive design. So you're seeing my screen in a laptop type view right now. Now, if I were to shrink this to more, I'm 4 wide on my widgets, as you can see here. If I shrink this down to a tablet size, you'll notice the system automatically recognizes the size of the device I'm on and repositions those accordingly. So now you see it's 3 wide because I'm working on a tablet. All right, if I went to an application itself, let's again go to the vendor's application, and I see, you know, I'm in the laptop mode right now, but let's go ahead and we'll shrink this down all the way to maybe a phone size. All right, so now you'll see it's repositioned the columns on the form to fit on my phone. So depending on the device you're on, the system will automatically recognize that and reposition the data so that you can best work with it on the size of the device that you're dealing with. All right, and that's called responsive design, and that's just the nature of the architecture of the CloudSuite system. All right, moving along, we're going to start talking about some of the functional areas. Now, I'm going to cover some CRM and sales information and some material planning and purchasing. And then my counterpart, Mike, is going to jump into some production planning, scheduling, and execution. So we'll take a look first at some CRM and sales information. So within CloudSuite, we've got integrated CRM, as I mentioned before. Now I'm going to take you to a lead. Okay, so this particular lead started out with some interest in charging units that this customer had. And as it worked its way through the system, eventually it became an opportunity. Okay, so as we look down here, my lead became this opportunity, which basically it's a little warmer than a lead. They requested a quote. We've got an RFQ request, and they wanted some detailed pricing. That RFQ then became an estimate. So I have quote number 8 here. And that estimate eventually became my order number SO27 here, my sales order number 27. All right, now I'm going to show you kind of how this would play out. So I'm in Outlook, and I got this message from Cole Randall. Now, because I have an Outlook add-in in the system, basically what that's giving me is the capability of seeing CloudSuite data down here in my Outlook email up here. I'm going to talk about these little yellow highlights in a second, but down here I'm seeing past orders from Boschko, because this was from Cole Randall. The system recognizes the fact that he's with Boschko and presents that information. It also presents any interactions I've had with Cole. So here's the request for quote. Here's the email. So we can see that right up here. Here's the email. Here's the response. Okay, where I said as requested the attached quote. And up here, Cole came back and said he's going to accept this. And so we see that being captured in the CloudSuite system. Now, these yellow links you see at the top are what we call smart links. So right within Outlook, if I were to click on that quote, it's going to take me out to my CloudSuite quote and show me the detailed information. So here's my detail. Okay, again, there's my opportunity 91 that created it. I can use my document management to maybe get additional details here, right? And I've got a nice linkage back to the actual CloudSuite information from the lead that we originated with. Right now, again, we saw in Outlook how all that information is nicely presented, but I can also, at any time, I could go into CloudSuite and just click this interactions button and see all those steps as well. In fact, in this case, even before we started exchanging emails, we met Cole at the trade show. Okay, so there's our notes on meeting him at the trade show. Here's where he had requested the quote. There's my email that got automatically embedded in CloudSuite. Here's where I submitted it back to him. So it nicely ties all those pieces of information together, all the way from quote, all the way from lead to the eventual order for that product. And if I look at the customer order here, we'll see that as well, and we'll talk about that next. But basically, a nice linkage all the way from the beginning of any correspondence I've had with them, all the way through to the eventual order. All right, as I'm tracking this information, okay, and accumulating opportunities, that's feeding my CRM pipeline. So if I go over to my dashboards and we look at my CRM dashboard, all right, we'll go look at our pipeline dashboard. You're going to see that I've got a funnel with opportunities at various stages. Okay, so I've got 658,000 at the close stage, 757 at the qualify stage. Here's my total leads, total opportunities. Here's the breakdown by stage if I kind of hover over these little graphs. And then there's some more detail, the territory sales personnel analysis. And if you do campaigns, we'll see at the bottom, here's a % of estimated sales by campaign and how it breaks down by salesperson. Right, so a lot of helpful information. And then again, as we saw before, we can start drilling in to get more details. So let me look at the leads at the close stage. So I've got 30 leads, 32 opportunities, and there's my opportunity value. If I want to see in the Northeast, what is this 256,000 of closed opportunities represented by in terms of reps? There's my rep breakdown. Okay, and within a rep, I can see, how much was won, how much is active, and how much is lost. In addition to this, I can start analyzing my pipeline. So I could go in and into a secondary dashboard here and say, what have I done in the East? So here's my Eastern sales versus my Western sales. I could say, show me a comparison of sales reps. What did Hal do? Okay, so here's Hal's opportunities, won and lost, versus Pat. Okay, and again, I could drill back into more detail from here if I wanted to. All right. So a nice way to kind of slice and dice all that good information that CloudSuite's collecting. All right. Talk a little bit about the orders and how the system will provide you with real-time order promising. All right. So here's a sales order. In fact, this is that sales order that got created from the lead and opportunity and quote that we just looked at. So you'll see it's nicely kind of contained right there as far as where it came from. I've got full sales rep commissioning capabilities. We won't go into that right now. Here's my billing and shipping information. And then at the bottom, I've got my line item detail. Now, in this case, you'll notice I've got an order for 3 units. Customer wanted this on 7/30. The system's telling us we can't have that, can't produce that until 8/14, or at least those 3 units. Now, if I click on this Get CTP, this is real-time order promising. No work orders required, nothing. The system in real time is going out and it's looking at supply, it's looking at demand, it's looking at my available capacity in the shop, all my work order activity, and it's saying, okay, based on the current plan, we can't provide this until 8/14. Now, if I were to look at my quantities button here, I'll see that of the 3 they requested, I can promise 1 because I have 1 in inventory. Or, I can go back here and say, okay, let me see the plan detail for this. Okay, so why is it telling me it can't produce that, or I can't ship that until August 14th? Well, it's because of this wire that's a 15-day lead time, and I'm not going to receive that until the beginning of the 14th or maybe the 13th, and then I've got all these other operations, my assembly, my inspection, that I have to complete. All right, so it's giving me, again, a nice visual of why is it telling me this. Now watch what happens. What if we went back and said, okay, we only want 1 of these. Again, showing you the real-time nature of this. I'm going to save that. I'm going to hit my Get Capable to Promise on that. And you'll notice now everything's okay. I can promise that 1 because I had that 1 in inventory. All right, so again, it's showing me what I can realistically do on my overall plan based on what I have out in the shop right now. Okay, that's a real-time order promising. All right, one other view within sales is something we call customer document lifecycle. You can go in by order, by estimate, or quote, by RMA, by invoice, any one of these. I'm going to choose an estimate. I'm going to estimate number 6, and what this is going to just show me is this estimate on this date resulted in this order, which was produced by this manufacturing job. I didn't have an RMA in this one. If I did have a return, I would see that. It was shipped on this date, on this sales order. I invoiced it on invoice number 70 on this date, and then the payments were made on these dates, okay? So if I right-click on any one of these and click details, I can drill back and see, okay, here's the invoice and here's the 2 payments, and there's the individual checks that were paid for, or that they pay this particular AR invoice on. All right, so that's called customer order document lifecycle. Same type of feature exists in purchasing as well, to show you kind of a purchasing document lifecycle. All right, I'm going to hit planning and purchasing, and then we'll move on to some manufacturing features. All right, so as I'm accumulating demand in the system is going to produce a material plan, and that material plan is going to show itself up in the material planner workbench, which is what we see here. So material planner workbench is basically my shopping list of everything I need to do to support my demand plan right now, everything to support the forecast, actual orders, safety stock, everything that's out there right now. And if we take a look at this, I can sort these by date, or I could filter them maybe by vendor or by planner code. In fact, let's go ahead and we'll do a filter on one of my planner codes. So I'll say I want to see everything in the SL1 planner code. So now I'm planner SL1. I just want to see my items. Or I might want to say, I'm an electrical planner, so I want to see everything in the electrical commodity class. All right, and when I get the item I'm looking for, maybe it's this tire pressure sensor. We're going to click on plan detail to see why is it telling me to release an order for 33 of these on 7/23 to have it here on 7/30. Well, it's going to release on 7/23 because I've got a 5-day lead time to have it by my due date of 7/30. When I click on planning detail, it's going to show me why. And it's going to say, well, you've got 7 on hand right now. You need to order 33 to get you up to your 40 safety stock. So this is a simple safety stock example. I go back and I look at another item. Okay, let's just open it back up to everything. I'll see for this specialty wire. Okay, remember our CTP or our order promising example we just looked at. Okay, why is it telling me to release an order for 500 here? Well, first of all, my order minimums for this item is 500, so that's why it's recommending 500. But it's for this demand of 50 on sales order 27 that we just saw. So there's that shortage we had, and that's that 15-day lead time. So it's saying you need to buy this and have it in to satisfy that customer demand that we saw earlier. All right. Now, as we look at these items, you'll see down at the bottom, there's some nice notes in terms of the vendor item combination. So it's telling me, for this vendor, I need to, that has to be sourced by that supplier. For this particular item, I can get it from 2 different vendors. Here's my vendor pricing. Maybe one of them has good quality and the other has higher pricing. So I'm getting good information here in terms of what I need to have informed decisions before I actually release purchase orders. And to release them, I basically click on a row and generate the order, and I don't have to go in and enter it manually whatsoever. All right, we'll talk a little bit about our factory track mobility solution, which is all part of the integrated CloudSuite solution. And you can certainly do receiving and shipping and inventory management on the desktop, but we can also do it via mobile device. So I'm going to pop up our warehouse mobility emulator here. Just going to sign in. And so you're going to have the capabilities of scanning receipts, of scanning shipments, of doing inventory counts and movement on a mobile device. And I'm just emulating an Intermec device, but it can be literally as simple as a cell phone or a tablet, or it could be a very sophisticated data collection device. We're going to just do a simple receipt transaction. So I'm going to do a purchase receipt. And what I would do is I'd scan my PO, and I'd scan the line item and pull up the item. I'd verify that, tap on next. Now I'm going to put it in a specific location. Now this item happens to be a QC controlled item, a quality controlled item. I'm going to go ahead and receive 10. In this case, it's going to pop up a message. It's going to tell me that these have entered into an inspection disposition process of some sort. All right, so if you look here, it says that the receipt was successful and it's put them into a QC receiving location. Right? We click OK. Now I can say if I want to print labels, I can say I've got 1 box, 10 of these. I'm going to put in a single box. Okay, and now we're on to our next receipt. All right, so very simple to use our mobile capabilities. But now what's happened, if you look at this QC inspection, is there's the one we just received. Now, in interest of time, I'm going to show you one I already did. But here's one where I received 10, I've accepted 5, and 5 were put on hold. And the reason they were put on hold, if I go to my test analysis, was the continuity check was fine, but 5 of them failed the function test. All right, so QC is going to be able to enter any and all information they need to, as well as launch things like this MRR where they're specifying exactly what was wrong. So the gears were grinding. It was a manufacturing defect, and these are going to be further evaluated to analyze the problem. Okay, so that's an example of inbound quality receiving. I'll just mention the fact that the same process exists for in-process receiving as well. So any of your job receipts can be pushed through a quality process, just like we saw there. All right, the last thing we'll touch on is supplier quality analysis. Now we've seen a couple dashboards, one related to sales and another related to CRM. In terms of quality, we'll look at supplier analysis and kind of a vendor scorecard. Okay, so I'm going to take you to a vendor scorecard dashboard. So here's an example where I'm looking across all my vendors. There's my average vendor score for everybody. But in this case, I see Bentley Supply has got a high rejection rate. So I may want to analyze, why is that? Well, it looks like it's 75% of the spring clips we bought from them have been rejected. Well, if I go down and I look at the details, you'll see, because it's all filtering based on what I've clicked on. Here's my orders from Bentley. It looks like it was this order right here where I received 40, I rejected 30. So I got kind of a low score on that receipt. And when I click on the PO to review the details, it would drill back and show me the quality analysis that we just saw related to that. So there's my 40 received, there's my 30 that are on hold, and there's my 10 that have been accepted. And again, I can drill back into the test results and additional information related to that from there. All right. So those are some of the sales and material planning and purchasing capabilities of the system. I'm going to pass it off to my counterpart, Mike, to talk a little bit about manufacturing planning, scheduling, and execution. All right, Mike, hopefully you've got control.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. So this is Mike. I'm going to show, as Dave pointed out, some things related to sort of material and manufacturing planning. We only have a few minutes here, but we want to give you some idea of the highlights of the system. So remember, as Dave was talking about, you can do a whole lot from these home pages. This is a home page that sort of shows you the overview of our system capabilities. But I'm going to move down to one I have it called demand management. You can kind of think of this as production inventory planning. And so I've moved to that homepage. I also have a tendency, I like to put my browser, which I think Dave and I both use Chrome, but all the common browsers are supported. I like to put mine in full screen mode because most browsers allow for that, and it gives you a little more real estate on the screen. Now, when you think, let's start thinking about some of the material and capacity planning things that are at stake. Most systems for the past many, many years have had some sort of MRP capability. Our system has what I have grown to call MRP on steroids, something called APS. Now, there's a lot on this screen here, but let's focus on what I'm circling there. It says APS. That stands for Advanced Planning and Scheduling, or Advanced Material Planning and Scheduling. And again, it's a form of MRP. It's an advanced form of MRP that does a lot of the things that MRP does. In fact, it does everything that regular MRP does, but it does a few things extra. And those to kind of summarize the extra things, they'd fall under sort of two categories. One is it's a real-time deployment of MRP. So every time a new order or new forecast is entered in the system essentially does a little mini MRP run on the fly. That's why, as Dave showed you some of our order promising capabilities, the system is designed this way so that if you make a promise to a customer, say early morning at 9 a.m., that any orders after that, literally a minute later or 10 seconds later, the system is aware of resource commitments it made, again, 10 seconds ago. So that's the real-time nature of it is what allows us to do sort of world-class delivery promising. The other thing that's interesting about APS is that it is a tool that sort of looks at all resources in concert. Traditional MRP systems have a tendency to plan material procurement separate from capacity. Our system makes sure they're sort of planned in concert. So just be aware of that. Lot of compelling things about our APS system. A couple other things we'll mention quickly. With the Infor CloudSuite ERP system, you get there's a forecasting module that's available. There's also something down here that I'm circling called alternative summary. That's a fancy way of saying there's a simulation capability with the system. So if you need to do business simulations, let's say you're expecting sales to grow by 15%, or maybe a particular product line to grow by 20%. What our system allows for is to build a simulation environment, and essentially what happens is you copy your live production data. That's all your inventory, all your open sales orders, work orders, open POs, etc., and you create a simulation environment. And from that simulation environment, you can run various tests. That can actually be used in sort of what I would consider two modes. Tactical, if you're trying to expedite a few orders that are late, or strategic in the mode where you're trying to assess sort of major business changes. Okay, let's take a look at some details now. Again, I'm going to go kind of quickly here, but let's look at that forecasting thing I talked about. So much like Dave was doing, I have some nice menu selections here. And if I hit this little button that says Forecast Dashboard, that is taking me over into the forecasting sort of main screen in our system. And this can be used as a sort of a sandbox to allow you to test different forecasting algorithms. But in general, the idea behind this is you take a particular item or part master record or SKU, okay, and if it qualifies for forecasting, and by the way, we have some tools to help you which items should be forecasted. But when you do that, you sort of enter it or you address it on this particular screen. The screen automatically shows you unit sales over the last X amount of years or whatever time period you want to work with. And from that, it can apply a forecasting algorithm. Now, we have a whole bunch of forecasting algorithms that are available, plus we have one called automatic selection. What that automatic selection does is it interprets past demand in order to come up with what it considers a future demand pattern. That's kind of what you're seeing here. Now, the whole point of this, though, is by applying an algorithm like that, it calculates the forecast. You can kind of test the waters on that forecast, but if you like it, you sort of propagate it out to the balance of the system, and then the system uses this data to initiate procurement and production planning, things like capacity planning, when you need overtime or different shifts, things of that nature. But this is sort of where it all starts because it's a really excellent demand management tool. Now, the other thing I'll mention about this quickly is it is also sort of a management by exception tool in that once you have something forecasted, if demand is matching the forecast algorithm, you sort of just let it run. It'll just sort of do it. You can kind of refresh it monthly. But for items that are outside of some user-defined threshold, it'll tell you things that where you may need to reinvestigate the model that's being used. So there's that. Now, Dave pointed out, let's go on to a different topic. Dave pointed out the fact that we have good delivery promising capabilities. I'm going to go to this screen I particularly like called order analysis. And I'll pull in some data here. This is a screen, as you might think, it helps you sort of analyze open orders. Although the order types can be what we call customer orders, that's equivalent to a sales order, but it could be a forecast, it could be other types of orders. I'll look at, kind of keep it simple here, just regular old customer or sales orders. All right, and then what I'm doing is, I'm saying I'm gonna hit my go button here, and the resulting data, what you're looking at here, folks, is orders 2 through 20, the days late on those is 0. What that essentially means is you have nothing to worry about there. All you need to do is run our system and sort of execute the plan. That means place POs when they're asked to be placed, process manufacturing orders as they're supposed to, and just execute the plan. But as you look at this top one, it's trending 15 days late. So this is another sort of management by exception tool. It's trying to tell you, here's something you might want to look at, because maybe your original promise to the customer has now been broken because maybe a machine went down or some part didn't come in. The other thing we like to emphasize about this screen is this is not late because it was supposed to ship yesterday and it hasn't shipped. It's late because this is a proactive, sort of forward-leaning tool that says you've committed to ship this on the 30th. Okay, but right now it's trending to not be able to ship until August 14th. So again, it's looking out in the future. That's good, but also it's trying to give you an opportunity to maybe remedy the problem right now. And much like Dave showed you earlier, any of these things that are late, you can always come over here and say, hey, tell me what's going on, what's causing the lateness. And it's that wire Dave talked about. So I'm using the same order he did, but I'm using this in more of a sort of a global kind of sense. Maybe I'm the master planner at your company, and I want a tool like this to help me keep my eye on things. Because again, I don't want to break promises I made. By the way, there's other tools in here that we don't have time to show, but that if you have certain parts that are causing lateness across many orders, we have a good bottleneck report on all items, and we also have the same thing from a capacity standpoint. So these are things that our customers typically find a lot of use for. All right, now let's briefly, I'm running out of time here. I just want to briefly show you some scheduling capabilities. I want to go back to this screen real fast. And you may remember, if I come up here, we have a really good what we call resource model in our system. Certainly there's a notion of work centers, but what our system allows you to do is constrain and schedule production by crewing of labor, machines, or other things like tooling and fixturing. And that's the kind of the underpinning of our system, that when we do a scheduling process, and that's a process that you run typically daily, maybe before each shift. And what it does is it can assess sort of resource availability and the nature of the product that's being run. And when you run that, you end up then with a schedule, a nicely optimized sequence schedule, and you have lots of different ways you can look at that schedule. I'm just going to show you a couple real quickly here. One of them is a handy Gantt chart. So when you look at this, and there's a million ways I could show you this, but this is a view of everything that needs to be run across a series of what we call resources. You can think of those as work centers if you'd like. Okay, and I can create this Gantt for any combination, and I can say all I want is a list of my cutting area or just my bending area. I'm putting a whole bunch of resources up here. Now, it's not that uncommon for our customers to use this. Maybe in a particular work cell, they're just broadcasting all the activity for the cutting work cell. But this is a screen that essentially our scheduling algorithm created this and made for a smart schedule. This is now, at this point, just a good way to look at the schedule. And if you have the permissions to do things like, it also allows for dragging and dropping with some rules as to what is allowed and what's not allowed. But that's kind of what I just did there. I did a little drag and drop reschedule. The other thing you could do real fast, I'll show you real fast, and there's a million scheduling capabilities of our system. We're just touching, the tip of the iceberg here. This is a screen, if you don't want something that's a little more graphical in nature, if you want sort of a row column orientation, this is a screen where you can kind of say, all right, at a particular area of my plant, my shop, I want to sort of look at what work is queued up. And all you're seeing here is a sequentially, nicely sort of sequenced list of work. But one of the big points we want to make for you here is these three sort of columns of data, those are sort of attributes of the product in question. And our point to you there is that's the kind of data that can be considered when our scheduling algorithm sort of fires off and creates, again, a sort of an optimized, smart sequence production schedule. Okay, I'm going to show you one last thing. Everything Dave and I have done today has been inside the core ERP, okay? There is also, well, Dave actually showed you a little bit of our factory track sort of the inventory capability of our factory track. There's a system. There's also a portion of our factory track module that I'm going to show you briefly that's designed a little bit more for labor assignment, labor collection, things of that nature. This is more sort of work order oriented. And here's what it looks like. A user comes in, they can sort of scan in their badge number. Notice that biometrics are supported, but I'll just go ahead and scan in. And then this is the interface that folks out in the plant will see, where they can do time and attendance. They can record material usage, or they can come over and see what they can clock on to work orders here by hitting start run, for example. Or they could come over and say, hey, I want a queued up list of work for myself. And when I click that button, this job list is exactly that. That's a queued up list of work for that particular person. It could be for that particular area. There's lots of different ways to deploy this. But when you look at this, you have quick access to relevant work order notes. And as Dave pointed out earlier, one-click button access to any kind of document. So in this case, I have a little PDF document that I can open here. But it could be any kind of document, any image, a CAD file, some kind of sort of video file. Lots of things are possible. But what I just showed you here in a very quick, maybe too quick, hurried way, was our sort of factory reporting system. Again, this is called Factory Track. Okay, went quickly there, but I think that we're running out of time, so we'll pause now and see if, I think that's the end of the presentation, so we'll see if there's any questions at this point.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Dave. We did get a couple of questions in that I think we can bust through pretty quickly. Again, to our audience, if you want to submit a question, even if we don't have time, we'll get back to you via email. You can submit your questions using the question box within the webinar toolbar. We did get a question, Mike and Dave, from Scott, who asks if CloudSuite can also handle process-related industries.
Yeah, let me answer that one, Dave.
Sure.
I had intended to show that, but we handle process industry requirements pretty well. In fact, I'll just flash something real quickly here. We have our system can be configured to handle sort of batch production. That's sort of formula based. That has to be, everything that a batch process is related. In particular, it's good at doing this kind of thing, taking a recipe or a formulation and then producing multiple finished goods from that. So that's actually become a sort of a strong portion of our system.
Excellent. John asks, is a separate license required for CRM, or is it included as part of the CloudSuite offering?
Dave, since I'm on, I'll just do that too.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I was going to say no. That it's part of the CloudSuite SaaS or software as a service subscription. It's included in your suite of applications. So no, and that's one of the big benefits of CloudSuite is the fact that all these applications we're talking about are integrated as opposed to having to bolt on additional applications. So yes, it is included.
Excellent. We have another question from Valerie who asks, are the features demonstrated available only in the cloud or for on-prem deployments as well?
Okay, I'll go on that one, Dave. The answer is everything we showed you here is available in the cloud or on-prem, and it's very difficult to tell the difference between the two systems. Because the on-prem version of the software is nearly identical to the sort of the cloud version.
Okay. That concludes our time for today. Thank you again to everyone for attending. Thank you to Dave and Mike. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have a great day.